What we do here is go back.
Hello there, everyone. How the devil are we all? I am okay. I thank you for asking. My hair is fucking mental, though. Jesus Christ. Look at that. That's fucking crazy. See, this is the problem. When you have a shower, you need to go out and, like, fucking comb it straight away. Otherwise, this happens. You end up with a fucking weird fro situation. Anyway. How are we all? That isn't a lot better, is it? Fuck it. We're going with it. I don't care. It's just, you're just going to have to put up with it, I think. How are we all? Are we well? I certainly hope so. Is that a Socratic oath? I believe so. I just thought that was a funny piece of graffiti. I don't know if it refers to the ancient Greek philosopher or the Brazilian footballer of the 1970s. It's a solid. He was a very, very good midfielder in one of the best teams ever, Socrates. So I don't know why. I don't know why they would be hating on him, to be honest. But there we go. Anyway, bit of a weird show for us today. We were going to be having on Marcus to do the breakdown of the Trump trial thing, but that's going to happen on, not breakdown, like to break it down, the ongoing trial. But that's going to be happening on Friday now. So I was at a little bit of a loose end, so to speak. And so I'm going to be speaking with a person called Lucy Haze, who is a Polish streamer, who wanted to have a word with me for some reason. I don't know what they want to talk about particularly, but we'll go with it, you know. And then after that, we'll look at some of the Israel-Gaza stuff, which is depressing as fuck because Israel have turned down a peace deal because the Israeli government is not interested in peace fundamentally, and it is currently attacking Rafah because obviously. That was their goal to begin with. Right. If you enjoy my content, and why would you not enjoy my content? It's fucking perfect. Literally, it cannot be improved upon in any way whatsoever. Not by me putting in any amount of effort, combing my fucking hair or anything. No. It can't be improved. It's perfect. I wouldn't change a single second. You can hit the follow button. You can subscribe. You can subscribe with Amazon Prime. You can give subs to the community. You can do bits messages, 200 bits or more, get you a text-to-speech. You can do Super Chats messages via the Streamlabs link below. You can help me out on Patreon and or PayPal. You can go over to the Discord. You can check me out on YouTube, Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Bebo, MySpace. I'm not on those last couple, but you get the idea. Also... hello there to everyone on YouTube. If you wanted to, you could do a super chat on YouTube. That is a facility available to you if you're you want to get a message to me, and also if you want to help out the stream financially. You can also become a member for as little as 99 pence, or you can give membership to the community. Condom hummus. I do condom hummus on the reg. No one condoms hummus more than me. Bigly. Apologies, I'm slightly phlegmy today. I don't quite know why. Yes. Discord. That's what I'm after. Oh yeah, and by the way, just briefly, to the person who contacted me privately asking me whether I had opinions about the Drake versus... who's the other guy? Kendrick something or other. Anyway... no, I fucking don't. No, is the answer. And I won't be talking about it, therefore, because I don't understand any of it. It's like asking an alligator if he has opinions on physics. Like, it's just... Have you seen how fucking white I am? No, I don't have opinions. Anyway. I'm going to contact the individual in question and we'll get to it. Hopefully this works. We shall see.
Hello.
Hello there, Luso.
Hello, hello.
How
I
are you?
might go live now.
Yes.
Because I'm not live yet. Should I go live?
Yeah, if you want. You're live on my end.
Okay. Oh, you went live?
Yeah, no, I'm live, yeah. I just wanted to
Because you
say...
said you'd go live within the hour, so I thought you were not live yet.
Oh, no, I only went live about 5-10 minutes ago, something like that.
Oh. So how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I am... okay. A mixed bag, as they say.
Yeah, fair enough.
Should I do a... Wait, should I turn myself on?
If you want to go on camera, you can, yeah?
Yes. On the Discord, so I have to turn it off here.
Okay.
Boom. Turn it on here. Oh. Where are we? Here. I'm gonna... Then I'm gonna...
There we go.
Yes, this is me.
Hello there.
Yes. Should I do an introduction to who I am?
Yes,
What I do?
yeah, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes. So, my name is Lucy Haze. I'm the biggest Polish trans streamer that also is Jewish.
Nice.
But I'm only the biggest Polish trans streamer because I'm basically the only Polish trans streamer.
Well, you don't need to mention that bit. Just flex. Now it's all good.
I see. So that is my situation.
Awesome.
And I've had a couple of topics with you for today, if you remember.
Yes, you said you wanted to talk to me about some stuff, yeah?
Yes. Because I've seen your debate with Lonerbox about Israel Palestine, which is quite timely considering what is happening right
Yes, indeed so, indeed. So, what was your take on that debate?
Well, my take was I more took a position of a person that just because as bad as it reflects on my Jewishness, my knowledge of the conflict lacks, you know?
Okay.
I have a lacking amount of knowledge when it comes
Well,
to
I don't think it's incumbent upon you as a Jewish person to necessarily know anything. That's not...
I know much more about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but...
Well, that makes sense, because, I mean, you obviously, in being in Poland, you live in a bordering nation to Ukraine, and it's affected Poland enormously, whereas you're not from Israel, so why would you necessarily know about it? It seems like an odd pressure to put on Jewish people around the world that they have to know or even care about what's going on in one tiny little place in the Middle East, you know?
Yes. I guess.
Yeah.
So basically, I just commented on what I saw in the debate itself.
Yes.
Would that make sense?
Yeah.
And I had thoughts on things like, for example, when Lonerbox presented, you talked about a quote.
Right.
And basically, my thoughts on the quote was that the added context did not really change anything. Did not make the quote any better.
So you're referring to the Isaac Herzog quote about there being no innocent civilians, yeah?
There being innocent civilians, because from my perspective, sort of, and I'm not... I talked to Lonerbox about it as well. I told him as much, you know? I told him basically the same thing, that from my perspective, the quote is saying, with the added context, that yes, you are innocent, talking to a hypothetical civilian.
Yeah.
You are innocent, but because your kitchen hosts a missile that is directed at me, basically, I have to kill you. Tough luck. You know?
Yeah, exactly. That was sort of my take on it as well, that the added context doesn't make him seem any less like he's going to murder civilians.
Yeah, because it just says, basically this sort of attitude of, we'd love not to kill you, but it's out of our hands. We have to defend ourselves against your kitchen missile.
Well, exactly. And actually, that's, like, as you say, about it being timely, with what's happening right now, which is obviously an ongoing thing, but the peace treaty or the ceasefire deal, which Israel has rejected, and is now saying that it's begun to attack Rafah.
Rafah,
But whilst pretending that they're like going in there to evacuate civilians. So basically, they're saying if you happen to still be there and we kill you, it's your fault. Which isn't that's just murder with extra steps.
Yes. That's what it seems to me, even if with my small knowledge of the conflict.
Yeah.
And there has been also this aspect of the so not the commemoration of the Holocaust to sort of use it as a rhetoric device to excuse continuing the war.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with that. Yeah, they use the Holocaust, ironically, as a shield to do genocide against other people.
I mean, specifically this year.
Yeah.
This year's sort of commemoration, there was a speech, I think, by Netanyahu.
Yeah.
About it.
What
he said that never again is now, and it has to continue because what happened in the Holocaust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are using the Holocaust as a in a really disgusting way, which betrays the memory of the people who lost, and indeed the people who were who survived the Holocaust. It betrays them entirely by using their memories as a way of continuing to do genocide against a different set of people. The famous phrase is "never again."
Yeah,
and yet
which is
the people
which feels strange to use it in this context.
Exactly, yeah. The people, unfortunately, in the Israeli government who say things like "never again" are the ones making sure that never again it doesn't come to pass, because they're literally doing the same basic crime, albeit on a lesser scale, of course, and that's something, I guess. But yeah, they're basically committing the same crime.
Genocide is the question of genocide is not exactly a question of scale, because if a group is small, then a group is small.
No. Well, when on a scale, it's not just the number of people; it's the way in which it's being done. It's not the same mechanized process. So I understand there's like
genocide
this
also is
historical.
Genocide is unique.
Yeah, it's
Right.
I'm merely sort of trying to head off any criticism from people who would say that the two are equivalent. They are equivalent on a moral level, of course, but they're not exactly the same process. There's a historical nuance there, which I think is worth just commenting upon. But it doesn't.
We probably would not look. We wouldn't probably dismiss the Rwanda genocide just because it was.
No, exactly.
People going out with machetes and chopping people up to bits, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're completely correct. Yeah, genocide is an evil, regardless of how it's done or the number of people killed. Yes.
It's like there were many. Of course, there were also things that I said about what you said. Although they were a bit technical. Nitpicks, you could say.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, what did you have critique of my my positions?
I mean, I guess that the main critique I had during the whole watching of the debate was at times I said that Loner Box could just respond to what you're saying by saying, I agree, those things are war crimes and Israel should be held responsible, but we've established that these are war crimes, but not necessarily that there's a genocide happening.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to go through with Loner Box the various ways in which the definition of genocide at the UN had been met. That the first three of I considered that 4 and 5 of the 5 main points wasn't really applicable, but it doesn't have to be. You only have to break one of them, and I think I pretty conclusively showed that Israel was guilty of breaking number 1, 2, and 3 of the criteria that are used under international law. That's how the Convention on Human Rights is written because of that, or based upon that.
That is basically the only genocide definition that is being discussed. The
Exactly,
UN Convention from Rafah.
Well, that's unfortunately the problem is Lemkin wanted a slightly more broad definition. He wanted to include things like
I'm.
ethnic displacement, which is, I think, an
He
absolutely
wanted.
crucial part of genocide that isn't within the context of the thing. And at least in part, on a historic level, it's at least in part because the three main powers who founded the United Nations, that being America, Britain, and the Soviet Union, didn't want that particular part
We're
in
not
there
happy.
because they were all
Oh,
they were all guilty of doing that. And so if
Yeah.
they allowed that as part of the Genocide Convention, they would open themselves up to potential criticism on the basis that they had all been guilty of doing that precise thing.
Because of course many things that there are there are a couple of aspects here. The USSR did not want the social and political groups to be in the convention because it was very much guilty of killing these groups. So it openly.
Well, not just that, but even just on an ethnic basis, the removal of the Tatars from Crimea was ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
So that even if we concede the point about political or social groupings, just on a racial and ethnic basis, they were guilty of genocide. If you include that in the
but
definition,
they definitely officially demanded that political and social groups be crossed down, along with Saudi Arabia and I think some other countries, and it got crossed down.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. But I mean,
the
Britain was
aspect
guilty of moving people from India to South America. The Americans had been guilty of the removal of native peoples from their lands. So they were all guilty of ethnic displacement genocide, which is why they didn't want it in there. You know.
But of course, as Karasus here says in my chat, ethnic cleansing is often used as a tool for perpetuating genocide. And of course, the US didn't ratify the convention during Lemkin's lifetime.
Yeah.
Because it knew that it was guilty of certain things.
And it's still not a member of a signatory to the International Criminal Court. And indeed, you even had 12.
The US never ratified the Rome Statute?
They're not a member of the ICC, no.
That's ratifying the Rome Statute, basically.
Well, they don't recognise the ruling of the ICC.
Hold on, let me.
And they literally, there's even to the
I
point
know that
where
Russia never ratified it.
there is a literally a statute on the books that if an American is ever taken to The Hague, the US government is given pre-clearance to invade the Netherlands in order to retrieve their citizen.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Which is one of the most insane things I've ever heard, but it's a thing that happens. And you even had this week 12 Republican senators from America who threatened personally the head of the ICC that if they issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, that he personally would receive sanctions from the United States federal government.
Very interesting. I knew that Russia never ratified the Rome Statute, but I did not know that the US did not as well.
Yeah, the American government have never accepted the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court, albeit that it has supported some of the rulings based upon people like Slobodan Milosevic and the prosecution of Radovan Karadzic from Serbia. But it's never formally accepted the jurisdiction of the ICC. Yeah.
The US participated in the negotiations that led to the creation of the court. However, in 1998, the US was one of the only 7 countries, along with China, Iraq, Israel, Libya, Qatar, and Yemen, that voted against the Rome Statute. Interesting.
Well, that's some interesting bedfellows that they have there in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to be a promoter of human rights and the rule-based order around the world. I don't know that you want to be sat next to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, really.
Well, Russia did the symbolic thing. They signed it, which basically means nothing, and never ratified it. And then, interestingly enough, I think in 2016-ish, when the ICC said that they were looking into Crimea and it's suspicious and it seems like an occupation, Russia immediately withdrew from the signature.
Unbelievable stuff. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you bring up the Russian occupation of Crimea and obviously now of eastern Ukraine. There are, unfortunately, there's an interesting similarity, or I suppose juxtaposition, between the way in which people in the West have treated Vladimir Putin and the Russian occupation of those lands, and the way in which they will happily support Israel doing similar things in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
Yes. Well, to me personally, the Gaza thing has a. Well, I live in Warsaw, and you probably know that Warsaw was.
Warsaw, yes.
Yes, you probably know that Warsaw had a place in it called the Warsaw Ghetto.
Oh, I'm very aware. I studied the Holocaust as part of my university course. Yeah.
Oh yes, you're a historian, yeah.
I think I put down both the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the Warsaw Uprising later on are two of the greatest examples of human bravery that I can think of in human history. I think they're amazing examples of unfortunately lost people, because unfortunately neither of them really succeeded in as such,
Yeah.
for various reasons. But they, in the face
Well,
of evil, they stood up.
There's
Remarkably.
some criticism to be had on the Warsaw Uprising proper, but that's a topic for another day.
Oh yeah, no, it's obviously complicated and political and all the rest of it, but it's still a huge amount of human bravery that went to waste, unfortunately. There we go. Yeah. So people are asking me, can you drop your social media links in my Twitch chat so people can check you out if they want to?
Yes, I have YouTube.
There you go.
Where do I like drop it in their DM?
You can do if you want to, and I'll post it in chat for people.
Drop it in DM.
Okay, cool.
YouTube and my page.
Yeah.
The whole boom.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I didn't even ask. What are your pronouns in case that does crop up?
She and her.
She and her. Okay, thank you.
A trans woman that plays New Vegas on stream.
Good lord. Well, actually, on that point,
of New Vegas?
No, of New Vegas, of being LGBT in Poland. We don't hear a lot of news, unfortunately, out of Poland, but that which we do seems to suggest a significant backlash against LGBT rights and stuff. So, as a person on the ground, what's your experience of being queer in Poland?
It's been very bad when during the rule of the Law and Justice Party, the president of the Law and Justice Party ran on the slogan of the LGBT are not people, they're an ideology. And it's slightly better under the new government of the coalition that sort of drove out the Law and Justice Party.
Yeah, Donald Tusk is back, I believe.
Donald Tusk, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, you're pronouncing it correctly. No Tusk, Tusk.
Tusk, yes. Just because I've heard Polish people say it, that's all. Like, I can't claim to have done that on my own. Yeah. Where did you post those links? Because they've not come through to the
DMs,
Discord.
No.
I can't.
Oh no, sorry, I DM'd it to the wrong person.
Okay. That's fair enough. No, that's fine. That's
classic. That is so classic me.
Thank you, Bilderberg, by the way, for gifting 5 memberships on YouTube. Much love. Yes. Okay.
But the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the one that was basically, it was not an uprising as such as choosing the place of dying.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
But from the beginning of this conflict, which I admittedly know not enough about, I've had the feeling of, well, even before the conflict to begin with, as a person living in Warsaw, it makes me feel a bit weird, the concept of people being walled off and then certain things being sort of cut off from them, because that sort of makes me think of the mentioned ghetto.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the Gaza Strip has been basically a ghetto, yeah, where people can't come in and out at will. The amount of food and aid getting in is controlled exclusively by the Israeli government and to a degree the Egyptian government, although they essentially have operated as a proxy of the Israeli government in this regard, unfortunately, rather betraying their Arab brethren. But regardless, and so yeah, it's basically been an open air prison, much like
It feels like
the
the countries that surround Palestinian people never really cared to be brethren to them or allies in any sense of the
yeah,
word.
exactly. No, I think people will look back upon the betrayal of the Arab world of governments like Saudi Arabia and Egypt and various other places in the nearby region who have, for short-term financial expedience, allied themselves with the government currently murdering Arabs. That's not an acceptable situation, and history should
Like the
view them
West
very
Bank was
poorly.
basically uh, annexed. No,
The West Bank
at some point.
parts of it have been occupied, and actually that's one of the under-reported parts of the current conflict is that whilst
Oh no,
everyone's
I'm thinking before it was annexed by the by Jordania. Yeah,
but Jordan, yeah, sorry,
Transjordania
yeah,
that by Transjordan that became Jordan
yeah,
because
yeah,
it annexed instead of sort of helping establishing anything there, they just
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's
annexed
a
it.
complicated history with all kinds of imperialist endeavors. The fact that there are weird
Yeah.
borders and stuff
And
that were,
then Egypt wanted to be basically also wanted to make Gaza a province
yeah,
of itself.
yeah.
Also,
I mean, there
by
have been,
extension,
yeah, there's been a lot
they
of,
wanted to be sort of they wanted to rule it, but without having any responsibility of actually taking care of it.
yeah, basically, yeah. The Egyptian governments over the course of decades, really, but especially the current government, are the government of Hosni Mubarak was incredibly guilty of betraying the Arab peoples, basically, especially the
And
Palestinians.
as far as I understand, the Gaza historically, I've listened to a lecture about Gaza has been this sort of the role of Gaza has been to be this in between place. So it was supposed to create a situation in which the borders between the sort of the land where Israel is now, the broadly speaking Palestinian land, and Egypt, the land where Egypt is now, right?
Yeah,
They made the borders more fuzzy, so to speak, and it was this in between trading hub that was supposed to be signify. It was supposed to be part of it was supposed to be outside of Egyptian border and part of it inside.
yeah,
It was to be this place where um, peoples from both sides would trade, exchange goods and this sort of thing.
yeah. I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you. It certainly hasn't worked out that way. Even if that was the
I mean,
intention,
that's
yeah.
been, I'm talking about long, long past.
Yeah, yeah, a very long time ago, I imagine. Yeah,
Like when those places were forming, etc.
yeah, yeah,
And of course, there were many raids on this area, but you could say that this current situation is the opposite of what Gaza is supposed to be, isolated, since at least for a long time, historically, it depended on trade,
yeah,
which is now sort of, you know, and from I understand, the other source of sustenance food was fishing for Gaza.
yeah, yeah. Well, it has obviously a Mediterranean coastline. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. Fishing was a significant part of their food intake and their economy. Yeah, and that's unfortunately the part of the thing that's not really discussed is that the economic development of Gaza has been enormously hampered by the fact that they can't really trade with the rest of the world when they're surrounded by a wall.
Yeah, and also by the fact that their infrastructure is basically in shambles now.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, their infrastructure's destroyed. It will take decades to get back to even where they were, and they were already in a bad state. But even to get back to that level, it's because there's been for staff, there's been purposeful destruction of civilian infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah,
Because the whole idea was that there was the civilian shielding, which I'm not sure I I'm not sure that is an argument that I accept as a justification for what has been and is going on.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I don't think so. Yeah, we've seen there are probably are examples of tunnels underneath buildings, but even the cases where, for instance, the national university in Gaza City, which the Israeli government didn't even claim had tunnels underneath it, and didn't claim was being occupied by by Hamas, was purposefully controlled demolition by the IDF. Why would you do that if not to make the conditions of life so difficult as to be impossible? Which is, by the way, one of the
Right.
definitions of genocide under the UN
It is.
Convention.
It is, and that was also one of my sort of criticisms in the debate, as to um,
Yeah,
as so happens. I also voiced that criticism to Loner Box when we spoke. That I feel like the discussion, the debate that you both had, focused on certain isolated elements,
yeah,
like the food, the electricity, the water, etc.
yeah,
And it's okay and good to focus on the individual elements, but I feel it is also important to look at how those elements interact with one another,
yeah,
and even more importantly, what sort of picture do they create together. If you take water, electricity, food, the bombing, the destruction of the infrastructure, and all those elements, if you
yeah.
just sort of stack them together one by one, and observe what sort of picture for the people living there it creates, then you can start discussing, well, does that meet the point in the
Mm.
UN Genocide Convention?
So how would you have approached the conversation then if you were me?
Well, I would have done that. The
Oh,
thing
okay.
that you
Yeah,
just said.
fair enough. I mean, that's a fair answer, I guess. Yeah. I
You
did
know,
for just to sort of reply or respond. I did try and bring in the different aspects of it, but you've always got to bear in mind with a debate that you don't want to appear to be. Are you aware of the phrase "gish gallop"?
yeah.
Because I realise that's not like a proper English phrase as such. Yeah,
I'm aware of the
yeah,
concept.
yeah. You've got to be wary not to do a gish gallop and just throw out a million things all at once to try and baffle, because you seem
Yes.
like you've got something to hide. So when you try and add in the different elements and how they interact as a larger picture, it can sometimes appear that you're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. So you've got to
Yeah.
try and be sort of wary of that, and that's part of the problem with debate as a concept, especially with sort of live streaming debate and not formal debates, is that it's not so much about who's right or who has the facts on their side, but how well they can craft a narrative, if that makes sense, using
Mm-hmm.
specifically the audience's perception of the
Perception.
arguments rather than it being necessarily about truth as such. It's about winning people over to a point of view,
Hmm.
which is I don't particularly like, but it's unfortunately a part of the political process, you know.
I see. Well, I feel like in this case it's sort of necessary to do when discussing a topic like genocide, because one element, like doing like, although in my opinion the response to a mm, terrorist organization existing within an urban structure, I'm not sure if bombing is necessarily the only possible course of action available to a state as a reaction to that. But that's, I guess that's a different topic, right?
Yeah,
But I would say that it is necessary to say this one element might not do it, this one element might not do it,
mm.
the third element alone would not do it. But if we combine them together, suddenly
Yeah,
we get a
yeah,
little bit of a bigger thing that affects people
yeah.
collectively.
I think so. Yeah. Um. So, you also said you wanted to talk a little bit about Ukraine, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially since there's a new topic that is about your country specifically.
Is it so? Okay, yeah. What's that in relation to?
I'm gonna bring up the article
Oh, okay.
because, as it seems, we could even read it together if you want.
Yeah, I'm for okay with that. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna look it up quickly, okay?
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
Do I have it open? Rob's waking up. Did you know that Article 7 procedure was ongoing against Poland?
Article 7. What's that?
The thing that sort of freezes IU members' ability to vote, etc.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Yes, I do remember that. Yeah, there were sanctions placed upon Poland, weren't there?
Yeah, that's because Poland, under the Law and Justice Party,
Mm.
was breaking a lot of things.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest with you, I would argue that Hungary should be placed into those sanctions as well. I think the
Yeah,
Orban
Hungary
government
is
is not it's not a democracy and shouldn't be in the EU.
Should I share the article via Discord or?
Yeah, if you put it on, if you screen share on Discord, it means it'll go onto my stream as well. So that might be
so
easier.
Share your screen. Boom. It should be here. There we go.
There you go.
It's a lot of tabs.
Yeah.
So Russia warns Britain it could strike back after Cameron remark on Ukraine.
Okay.
Because Cameron said that UK weapons can be used on Russian territory, and it's up to Ukraine to decide whether or not they want to use it on Russia.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I was always under the impression that that it was sort of behind the scenes that the UK and America and all of these countries that have been giving aid to Ukraine were fine with Ukraine using them in that way. But for
it was always considered escalation, and the US has forbidden since the beginning of the conflict of using any weapons on Russian territory.
That's what they say openly, but I mean like behind the scenes, like if you happen to send a missile over it, they're probably
Ukraine
not
has
as
not
bothered
been doing it, so I assume Ukraine has sort of been hampered in this way for a long time.
Possibly, okay. But for an official, albeit an unelected official, because he's in the fucking House of Lords, but even so, the British Foreign Secretary to come out and say openly that that's okay is interesting, but I think does potentially risk a war, which I'm not sure that's a wise situation.
There's been a response from Russia.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, naturally, like. Ironically, given that Russia is currently violating Ukrainian sovereignty, Russia does have a right to defend its own territory. And so, if you have a belligerent, and let's be honest, America and Britain are belligerents in this war, openly saying you can use our equipment to bomb you, that would be, I think, possibly a legitimate reason for them to declare war on Britain. Really, which I wouldn't want, and I hope doesn't happen, but. It would be understandable,
Moscow. Russia warned Britain on Monday that if British weapons were used by Ukraine to strike Russian territory, then Moscow could hit back at British military installations and equipment both inside Ukraine and elsewhere. And the question now becomes, where is elsewhere?
Yeah, where is elsewhere? Yeah, I don't...
Is it in UK proper? Is it in European countries that host UK equipment and installation? What sort of countries host UK military installations and equipment? Because that is my question to you. Do you know?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know that there are military bases where UK soldiers are based in Estonia and Latvia, I think. If I remember correctly. But I don't know if that's necessarily equipment or just mostly service personnel. And they train Baltic nations soldiers and
could
stuff.
hit back at British military and installations.
Yeah, so they probably are talking about the military bases in the Baltic countries then, I think. Yeah.
That could mean so.
Because they definitely want, A, they want the Baltic countries back, and B, they've been doing consistently hostile manoeuvres on the borders of Estonia for quite some time, haven't they?
They also want Poland. So they're
Well, they
also-
do want Poland as well, yeah.
At one point, they said Poland is next for denazification after Ukraine.
Yeah, it's denazification is
Poland's full of.
such a funny phrase for someone like Vladimir Putin to use. Like, motherfucker, if you wanted to denazify, you'd have to commit suicide.
I mean, Rusic. Rusic is the spearhead of the denazification effort.
Mm.
The famous neo-Nazi Russian unit.
Yeah, well, exactly. And they've been. I mean, we know that the Wagner Group have aided and abetted all manner of horrific groups in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, haven't they? Like, the idea that Russia gives a fuck about removing Nazis from power is nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, any excuse is good to
Yeah.
invade a country that you want for yourself. So, British Ambassador Nigel Cassie, is that how I'm supposed to read the name? Nigel
Where's
or Nigel?
it's Nigel, yeah. Nigel
British
Nigel
Ambassador
Casey.
Nigel Casey
Yeah.
was summoned to the Foreign Ministry for a formal protest after Foreign Secretary David Cameron said last week that Ukraine had the right to use British weapons to strike Russia.
In a sense, I can understand why Russia are upset about that, but in a way, it's kind of true. If we're to say that Ukraine and Russia are legitimately at war, which I think obviously they are, if you're going to give weaponry to one side,
Then
obviously it
be
can be
able to
used.
do whatever they want.
Exactly, yeah. Like no one is saying
war.
no one is saying to like the arms manufacturers who are selling to Russia that they can't use that weaponry in Ukraine. Of course, they're going to use it in Ukraine. If Ukraine wish to defend themselves via offensive means, then okay.
Technically speaking, Russia is saying we're not getting anything from anyone.
Well, yeah, they presumably print North Korean letters on their bombs by accident, I guess.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Who hasn't accidentally written Chinese characters on their missiles? You know, crazy.
You know, it's an accident, but there's been this weird situation throughout this conflict from the very beginning, where Russia could do basically whatever it wanted in Ukraine, bomb it, destroy key electrical facilities, bomb civilians, basically escalate endlessly.
Well, not just that, but like fucking fire live ammunition at nuclear plants. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, and of course the whole dam thing, right? The blowing up of the dam, but the West's hands are tied, basically, and any move the West makes is considered an escalation and dangerous, which creates this one-sided sort of escalatory thing when the West has to be constantly afraid of escalating in any way, but Russia doesn't give a damn at all.
Yeah, it's interesting that Russia would be upset that Britain would say this when we've literally had members of the Russian government joke about bombing Britain, literally dropping nuclear bombs on Britain.
Yeah,
like
and Poland and.
I'm sorry. You don't get to claim to be the victims in all of this when you're the ones. Like, the only people who talk about bombing or dropping nuclear bombs on people are Russian officials.
Yeah, and Russian state media spokespeople.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But also that, like, the moving of nuclear warheads to Belarus, that's not escalation at all. But
No.
Poland, talking about possibly hosting nukes, now that's dangerous escalation and will be met with consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
and
the fact that Belarus changed its laws in order to allow that to happen, they're basically, why not just formally rejoin the Soviet Union then? Because you're basically just being ruled by Moscow at that point.
I mean, Russia is taking active steps to incorporate Belarus into its borders, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
but it's a very strange situation in which, like, I believe that West should also have its, I don't know, at least when it comes to verbalizing it. There, if you do this, that's an escalation from our perspective, and we will sort of do something about it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's very it's very for example, in Poland there has been a discussion among Polish people, at least in some circles, because there have been these incidents in which Russian missiles violated Polish airspace. I think you're familiar.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was the question, why don't we just shoot them down?
Well, exactly.
Why
Yeah.
aren't we shooting them down?
Well, exactly. They've constantly buzzed, I think is the phrase that gets used. They've constantly flown into airspace of other countries. We literally had the example in Britain last year of a Russian tanker
Hmm.
deliberately traversing into the Irish Sea, which
Yeah,
that's
this
territorial
why
waters of
not
Britain. We have every right, if we'd wanted to sink that ship.
why not react?
Yeah.
And the answer again is that the West is afraid that there will be an escalation, which seems like ridiculous because it's Russia doing the violation.
Well, that's what I mean. But to be honest with you, I I know where you're going
It's
with that,
Russia
but
escalating.
I think it's actually the smart move to not take the bait, because they ultimately, Russia wants a, the victim complex, and b, they want the the casus belli, the reason to go to war, of having been attacked, because they can say, well, look, it's just a one plane flew into Finnish airspace, or one ship went into British waters, and they decided to overreact and kill our people or whatever. And then they
The
can use that as
question
a
is,
reason to go to war. So actually, let them play their silly games. They're not actually a threat to anyone in this regard. A couple of planes going into Swedish airspace, or a boat going into Spanish waters, isn't actually threatening those nations
to
as
be quite
such.
honest,
And so
to be quite honest, I mean,
don't rise to the bait. Don't take the bait that they're trying to offer you there. You
but
know.
then I don't know. Like there's this constant posturing how the European Union's uh, GDP, how the budget of the European Union dwarfs that of Russia,
Mm.
and considering how Russia is doing in Ukraine, with Ukraine being perpetually starved of everything, I'm not even sure if Russia is in any position to start a war with anyone else right now.
Well, I don't think they'd actually necessarily do a great deal, but it would give them the opportunity to actually create problems. Like, they do have a port in Syria, so they could attack Suez shipping. They could attack.
But they're not. They're having a very poor record of handling their own fleet, considering how much they've lost
Yeah, I'm not arguing it
to
would.
Ukrainian
Yeah, I'm not arguing.
soldiers.
I'm not arguing it would go well for them. But what I am arguing is there would definitely be a negative outcome for everyone involved, mostly for Russia, and that's sort of a problem because I don't want innocent Russian people to fucking starve to death either.
Right.
So I don't want anyone to suffer in all of this, and us starting a war, deliberate or not deliberately, us reacting to this silly provocation, like it's much like with a child. Like, you can react angrily to the child, but that the child wants the response. The child
But
wants you to get
also
angry with
because
it so that it can feel
there's
aggrieved and act out. And again, you can control the child ultimately, but no one wins in that situation. You
but
know?
there's that's the thing a little bit, because it feels like the West, the so-called collective West, is so afraid of sort of taking the bait, so afraid of starting escalating in this way, that there is no firm response to what Russia's doing, and so Russia, on the other hand, is emboldened to do whatever it wants.
I don't think you can
In
argue that
Ukraine
it's. I
specifically.
I know the argument you're making about like appeasement, right? That if you
Yeah.
just allow them to do whatever, but I think considering how well Ukraine has kept Russia in check with, like you say, not enough support from the international community, especially in the last 18 months. Like the initial burst of support was really good, and then the Americans have kind of backed
Well,
off, and Olaf Scholz in Germany has decided to be a prick. Viktor
aid
Orban has been acting up. It's been unfortunately restricted in a way, but the Ukraine has still been able to hold Russia pretty decently in check. I don't think you can argue the West, especially the European countries, have appeased Putin. I think Putin
you
and
sort
Russia
of can.
are relatively well chastised by the situation.
There's,
Their 3-day military denazification operation has turned into trench warfare for 2.5
that's
years.
true, but there's a lot of there's a lot to get to here. Like the aid has been, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, lacking from the get-go. The way the aid has been handled was not good at all. Like aid has been giving in small quantities in this. Like there's been this comparison to a drip, you know, drip, 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 drip aid, and oftentimes the aid came too late when it could have been a lot more effective,
Yeah.
and then it gave Russia time to sort of be able to adapt and respond much better than if the aid came when Ukraine actually asked for it and in the quantities
Yeah.
they asked for it. And there's also like there's when it comes to the aid itself, there's a lot of to criticize the West for the fact that Ukraine is in perpetual need of anti-air systems. The European Union has like at least 100 of those systems and seemingly cannot spare even a few. You know,
Yeah. Who do you
like
who
it's
who do you blame for this lack of aid, lack of support?
like the best, like the worst thing about there's no single party to blame here.
Oh yeah, no, there isn't one single party. But why do you think this has come to pass? What political forces are leading to that outcome?
Well, part of that is that there's this constant fear of escalation. If we give too much, if we give too fast, if we allow this, if we allow that, then that'll be escalation that could lead to the worsening of the situation. That's been a common theme. Should we give this type of weapon, or will this be escalation? Should we give this type of tank? Will this be escalation? Should we give this type of
True, but
missile? Maybe we shouldn't give this type of missile. We should discuss it. We should
is that
deliberate
not
on it.
is that not just an excuse that's used though? Like I don't think that's the real reason that a lot of the reticence to give that kind of offensive military capability. I don't think it's about escalation because I think we've seen from David Cameron coming out and just saying it. I think the European countries don't mind Russia
I mean,
being kind
that's a
of
long
defeated.
process. I think
I
I
think
think
it's
Europe
I
is
think
only
it's
sort of
I think the excuse is we don't want to escalate. Like we see in America with the Marjorie Taylor Greene type people. They don't actually give a shit about, and they're not anti-war. Look at their support of what Israel is doing. Then they're clearly not anti-war. They're just pro Putin getting his getting what he
yeah, they're
wants in
pro
Ukraine.
Russia.
Yeah. So it's for me, it's an excuse, a very convenient and plausible excuse at times, but an excuse that's used by people who, for other reasons, don't want to help Ukraine or do want to help Russia, that they use to get away with it. And I think a lot of it, unfortunately, is economic self-interest. I think if you look at the way in
There's
which
probably some of it here, yes. Especially
Olaf
since
Scholz has been very disappointing at times with the way in which he's the new Chancellor of Germany, the way he has
the Taurus
handled,
missiles.
yeah, the way he has handled some of this does reek of self-interest over the defence of Ukraine and indeed the defence more broadly of
Europe.
peace in Europe. Yeah,
And there's been like the UK, for example. I've been getting notifications. I've talked about it on stream how the UK has continued to, even though the oil is sanctioned, the UK, for example, and probably other countries have been continuing to buy Russian oil via third parties.
yeah.
So that's a
Well,
problem as well.
that always happens, unfortunately. I mean, we saw with ISIS in parts of Syria and northern Iraq that we know that, let's say, illegally, agents within Turkey were able to buy oil and sell that on the international market, and we know that funding led directly into bank accounts controlled by ISIS operatives. These things unfortunately happen because oil is such a looked for commodity and such a high in demand and profitable commodity that people will always buy it regardless. There's no
Yes.
in
Although,
capitalism. There's no like moral to it. They just want to make money. You know.
although if countries are serious about supporting Ukraine and defeating Russia,
Yeah.
then they probably should not fuel the Russian war machine at the
Oh
same
no,
time.
I quite agree. I wasn't. Sorry, apologies. My lights fucked up. I wasn't arguing that what they're doing is good. I was just arguing that it's a thing that always happens. It's not a
And of
unique
course,
situation necessarily.
as I said, there's discussion in Polish circles, certain Polish circles, that went beyond why don't we shoot down Russian missiles when they reach the space of Poland. But more and more people have been asking, why are we not defending Ukrainian cities that are within our range? It would not be any sort of escalation since no Russian soldier would die, and we could be saving lives. Since bombing cities and civilians is not an acceptable thing in war to begin with.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think from the Polish government's perspective, they would be probably a little scared of accidentally killing Russian service personnel in some way.
Or it's impossible if you just target the missiles that are used to bomb Ukrainian cities. It's physically impossible. There is no personnel involved. It's just missiles and drones.
Oh, so just missiles, not
Yeah,
not.
if
Okay.
Poland would use its
Yeah.
anti-air,
Well, I suppose
to
you'd be in a better situation to explain that than me. Then I guess why have the Polish government what reasons have the Polish government given for not doing that?
well, that's probably part of the whole escalation thing. That's the only explanation
Yeah,
why Poland would not do it. Like they would be afraid that it would be taking part in the war.
yeah. I suppose it could be seen as intervening on one side, even if it
But on the
is,
other side,
even if it's just humanitarian in nature. If you're deliberately interfering with the offensive capabilities of one side, that necessitates you becoming, in some respects, a belligerent in that war, even if defensively
yeah,
so.
but then again, indiscriminately bombing cities is a crime.
Oh
So that
yeah,
would be just stopping a crime.
yeah. No, absolutely. I agree. I think the Polish government should do that, but I can understand from a legal perspective why they would be cautious. But that doesn't mean
Well, I
they
guess.
can't give, like, for instance, it's not, even if you don't want to become a deliberate combatant, the idea that
Mhm.
just arming Ukraine properly is somehow a bad thing. And I'm not accusing the Polish government necessarily of doing that, because actually I think if you look at the way in which the governments of Central and Eastern Europe outside of Germany have operated largely, I think they've been pretty good. The Baltic countries have been incredibly generous compared to the GDP of those
Yeah.
relatively small nations. If Britain or the United States even gave a tenth as much of their percentage of GDP, Ukraine would win overnight, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, the U.S. has given in aid a fraction of what it spent on its past conflicts,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
and
and
still,
that's part of the problem is the drip 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 just elongates the war. The
yeah,
USA and the West more generally, I think, should have made the decision at the very start. You either give in and don't do anything and save everyone the time and money, or you do the right thing and give enough weaponry to
yeah,
Ukraine in order to
to just win.
actually win. Because at the moment, all you're
Yeah,
doing is funding a stalemate, and it's just butchery. It's just trench warfare, like the First World War or something. It's awful.
and as much as the fact is that Russian soldiers lose more people, um,
Like,
Ukrainian people are also dying,
yeah.
and
Well, firstly,
that all could have been avoided with
Yeah,
proper aid.
yeah. Russia has more people to lose, and they're prepared clearly to slaughter their own people in
Yes,
prodigious quantities, unfortunately. And secondly,
and there's
most of the fighting is happening in Ukraine, so every day it continues to happen, Ukraine gets broken down more and more. Where whilst
yes, that is also
Russia is being affected quantitatively in terms of its economy and stuff, but the Russian cities aren't affected by this by and large. Belgorod has been
yeah.
hit a couple of times, but their infrastructure is absolutely untouched by this, whereas huge swathes of eastern and central Ukraine basically don't exist anymore. Places like
Yeah,
we
and
saw what was the port city at the Azov Sea. I've forgotten its name anyway, which was basically obliterated. And you look at it now, the city doesn't exist anymore. That was a place that had like a population of 400,000 or something before the war, and now it isn't.
right?
It doesn't fundamentally exist as a city anymore. It's just some piles of rubble. Mariupol,
Yeah,
thank you, Mariupol.
Mariupol. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a.
Although Russia brags about rebuilding it, but
Well, I mean, yeah, but who's going to go there? What
good
it's.
question. Russians,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll just move Russians in again.
I
Again,
mean they're already doing it. But
another example of this kind of the dual aspects of ethnic displacement. One is removal of people who were already there, i.e., Ukrainians, and replacement of those people by a subtler colonialism of your intended ethnic group. You know.
well, the Russification happening in the occupied areas is ongoing. It's pretty bad, and worse things are happening. People are
Well, this is
forced to take on Russian
yeah.
passports. It's just
Well, this problem could have been headed off at the pass a long time ago, either by not allowing Putin to come into power in Russia in the first place, by accepting Russia into the family of nations after the fall of the Soviet Union, or even if you didn't want to do that, aiding the legitimate Ukrainian government several years ago
I
in
mean,
defending those eastern territories
from my perspective,
from
aid should have been given in 2014. That should have
yeah,
happened.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Decisive help.
Yeah, I think it will be one of the failings. I think going forward of the memory of the Barack Obama presidency, that he basically stood by and allowed the annexation of Crimea basically unchallenged, and
And
the
there's the
the
Donetsk and Luhansk business.
yeah, exactly, yeah. That's the kind of point I was going to go on to. Those quote unquote people's republics, as they referred to rather ridiculously by Russia,
Yeah.
in eastern Ukraine. If the West had stepped in and given active assistance to the Ukrainian government to stamp down the weird ethnic terrorism that was basically taking place there and the separatist violence,
Yeah.
this could have been headed off at the pass a long time ago.
Somewhere around here, I have a newspaper dated 2014
Yeah.
that actually talks about this. That basically, because there are many people that are pro-Russian shills that in either debates online or offline claim, but those had legitimate, um, what's referendums, and though they chose to be outside of Ukraine, they chose to be sort of their own things, and
Yeah.
maybe even later join Russia.
Yeah.
And there's like it's Poland did not have amazing relations with Ukraine in 2014, so it did not have any special interest in sort of lying about this subject, you know? And
Yeah.
in the newspaper, which I just actually, ironically enough, just happened to lie here in this streaming room,
Yeah.
which I inherited after my father died, it speaks of leaked conversation between separatists and Russian forces, which spoke of doing a referendum, which sort of conclusion would be decided beforehand
Yeah.
in May.
Yeah.
And the separatists said, we're not ready. We might not be able to do this now. The government in Ukraine is getting stronger. We might not be able to pull it off. And the Russian side was like, what, are you going to go with referendum, cards from home to home? Just write 90%, 85%. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then it leaked. And when it leaked, Putin sort of did this whole official thing. Let's do the referendum later, and let you prepare for a nice, fair referendum.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Mad shit.
It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. By the way, thank you, DJ Che, for raiding in. Everyone, hello there, everyone. Hit the follow button now. Anyway, yes. So
maybe it's just my Polish perspective, but
yeah,
being negative and pessimistic, but I just think all of this could have been avoided. All of this could have been,
Yeah.
like, even forgetting about 2014 and getting into the whole full-scale invasion. When in February, when there was this whole, there were meetings, there were marches all around Europe and the world, sort of commemorating an anniversary of the full-scale invasion happening for a few years now. In Poland, the the basic thing that was said at the beginning of the march was, no, we're not here to commemorate the few years of the full-scale invasion. This has been going on for 10 years. We've been meeting here from 2014, and it's not been just a few years. It's been 10 years, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's a point that gets made by pro-Russian people is they say, well, it didn't start in 2022, it started in X year, and usually they go on about the Maidan protest and all the rest of it. The one way in which they're correct in this is that you shouldn't think of the Ukraine war as having started in 2022. The seeds
yeah,
for this were way back in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea, and
exactly.
with the fomenting of Russian ethnic violence in eastern Ukraine by obviously paid agents of the Russian state.
Separatists.
Yeah, separatist people in eastern Ukraine. Which, by the way, this could all have been, if this was just a matter of natural Russian ethnic Russian people in the east of Ukraine doing their thing, this could have been solved very easily with maybe some sort of autonomous status for those regions of eastern Ukraine.
I mean,
Or
Crimea had an autonomous
exactly,
status, you
yeah.
have to remember.
There are ways in which you can ameliorate racial or ethnic tensions or religious tensions in a country
And somehow it
without,
did not help
yeah,
Crimea.
exactly, without it being, you know, without it being turning into annexation by the kind of the protector of those people or the kind of ethnic group that they're from.
Yeah. So in reality, Russia never cared about these things, considering that Crimea was given this autonomous status, and it changed nothing.
Yeah, it did. Phantom of Black, you raise a good point. Actually, it's very much like the Sudetenland during before the start of the Second World War, where if the German peoples of what was then Western Czechoslovakia, if they
Yeah,
were
the mountain ranges.
if they were being treated so badly, or if they were not seen as like being equal or whatever, you could give them semi-autonomous status, or you could even sort out an agreement whereby you have a dual government system,
Shared governance.
shared
Yeah.
governance. Actually, which is the argument I have with the Falklands Islands, where Britain and Argentina could have a shared governance situation, which would at least, you know, take that problem off the board internationally. But regardless. You could have some situation like that. And if the Russian government were acting in good faith, they may have been able to negotiate any number of these
I mean,
different
this is
possibilities.
what I believe
But
should
they
have
weren't.
happened with.
You know.
This is what I believe what should have happened with Lviv, like after World War One, and Poland and Ukraine. But that's neither here nor there.
Yes, there are. People forget that Poland shifted 100 miles or so to the west after the end of the Second World War, and that
Yeah.
much of what we now know as Poland was either Germany or bits of what is now Ukraine used to be part of Poland. It was a complicated.
Poland and Belarus and Lithuania.
Yeah.
And all of that was quite complicated because
And
Vilnius, which is the
Kaliningrad,
capital of Lithuania.
Yeah, indeed.
Vilnius,
which was a Polish city.
Yeah, but then again, it was a complicated matter because it was physically a majority Polish city.
Yeah, well, there are still significant Polish minorities in parts of Ukraine, aren't there? Yeah.
So Lithuania, that's because I guess I would have to go into the whole Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Are you prepared for a speech about the Polish-Lithuanian
I am always prepared for a conversation about the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Yes.
Yeah, are you well familiar with it?
Not well familiar, but I do know. I'm aware of its existence. Yeah, and it was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and then Poland didn't re-arise until like 1918 or something.
Yeah, although I object usually against calling the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth Poland for various reasons.
Well, the Lithuanians, yeah, for a start.
Because, well, Polish people and Lithuanians, as we understand them now, did not exist when the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth existed, because there was no notion of a nationality or a nation state back then.
Well, that's true of a lot of places actually. If you look at Italy
Oh,
pre,
it's true for all places.
yeah,
But
well, yeah, I mean, like in relatively recent history, like if you look at Italy before unification, they didn't even speak what we now think of as Italian. Most of those people, they had their own regional languages and dialects. The
so
same is
that's why I
true
sort of
of
object.
France before Napoleon as well. You know.
Yeah, I sort of object to calling the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth Poland because it was a totally different entity altogether. You could very well make the case that the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth is a shared heritage of Polish people, Lithuanian people, Ukrainian people, Belarusian people, as well as Jewish people, and many um, Armenian people and many other people that lived within the borders of this sort of the term is composite state.
Yeah.
You know, the union between the Kingdom of Poland and the Great Duchy of Lithuania, and there are historians that make the case that if the Rus or Ruthenian nobles played their hands better, if they showed more uh, active participation in the Lublin Pact that created the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, then we could have had a Polish-Lithuanian-Ruthenian Commonwealth from the get-go, which would have created a very different situation in when it comes to what the entity was and how it would relate to the rising power of the Russian state,
Yeah.
which is very interesting.
Yeah.
There was an actual attempt at the end of the life cycle of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth to create a Polish-Lithuanian-Ruthenian Commonwealth, but it sort of too little, too late, and it did not succeed, among other things, because of a Russian invasion that thwarted it.
Yeah. Well, indeed. Well, yeah.
You're familiar with these events, right?
Yeah. Again, not in massive detail, but I'm aware of the general broad strokes of it. Yeah. And
So it's and some um historians, interestingly enough, Ukrainian historians said that if we had that from the get-go, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, then perhaps many things like the Cossack uprisings would not have happened, and then because the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth at the end of the day was a very important counterbalance to Russian power.
yeah.
So if there was this counterbalance in the region against Russian power, then very possibly we would not have been in the mess that we are now.
True, but I mean, European history is so weird and complicated that it's difficult to say what would have happened
Yeah, it's difficult.
had a
Yeah.
million, because it's so complex, and that was, I suppose, part of the problem with the self determination after the First World War, was that if you had
So this
if you
is
gave self determination to every single group, Europe would be 500 countries. It would be ridiculous.
so this is where we go to. This is where we come to the post World War One situation in which we had many different peoples that lived within the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which was not a nation state.
Yeah,
So different peoples that lived within the same country, within the same borders, said, hey, this part of this country should be part of our new nation state. And this created tensions between Polish people, Lithuanian people, Ukrainian people, which parts of the old Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth should belong to the new nation state. And that
and actually
created
it led to a situation that was then used by Hitler in a very similar way to the way in which Putin used the situation of Russian-speaking peoples in eastern Ukraine.
right.
That when you had Germany in what was Poland, with the corridor to the sea,
Yeah.
he used the
And
excuse of them.
Kaliningrad was, of course, Eastern Prussia.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
Königsberg. Yeah, yeah. The Germans inside Poland, he used their mistreatment, quote unquote, as the excuse to go
Yeah.
in and invade, which again is very similar because in the same way that Putin just wanted to invade and didn't give a shit about the people, the Russian people of eastern Ukraine, Hitler wanted to invade Poland and didn't really give a fuck about the German-speaking people there either.
yeah. And of course, there's the So the Ukraine-Poland war was a direct result of this sort of people in Lviv wanted to be part of Poland, but all people around Lviv were Ukrainian and they wanted to be part of Ukraine. And this sort of it becomes a question. So how do you resolve it? And in my personal opinion, of course, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
The solution was to arrange of some sort of joint governance over Lviv
Yeah.
of Poland and Ukraine.
Well, that's, I mean, ultimately what would a sort of thing that would have to happen in Jerusalem as well, with Israel and Palestine, because of course East Jerusalem is the only real place that the Palestinian people will ever accept as a true capital, and so you'd have to have a genuine split of that historic city between two governments.
I mean, this is all just theoretical talk, but since I like the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth as a concept, I was thinking that, of course, there's the animosity that you have to get over,
Mm.
and that's very difficult when it comes to Israel-Palestine situation. But a two-state solution in the form of a composite state, if you will,
Yeah.
separate but united within a framework of a union, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's. This is the thing. If the problems are just political, if it's a matter of just
But
sorting
well,
out a
they're not,
situation,
unfortunately.
well, exactly, yeah. But if it were, then these things can be sorted out. Actually, the example I would give from my own part of the world is Northern Ireland, which itself shouldn't really exist as its own entity. But regardless, the fact that it was largely a political thing and it wasn't just a matter, like, obviously there are religious elements to it, but it's a political situation between the UK and Ireland, right? And so there's always a way in which the two sides can be put around a table and you can sort out a situation that people can live by. And now there is relative peace in a place that was a constant war for decades. And the same
Yeah,
cannot,
but
unfortunately, be said of Israel, because it isn't just a matter of a political solution. It's religious and ethnic supremacists trying to take other people's land. That's the problem, you know. Yeah.
well, unfortunately, there is also the very real problem of these people killed my family, these people killed my,
Oh yeah,
destroyed my home.
there is a cycle of violence, absolutely. But like I say, with Northern Ireland, that same cycle of violence existed. The British government killed innocent people. The IRA killed people. There were loyalist terrorists that killed people, and that can be gotten around if there's A, the will on both sides to make something happen, and B, that there isn't an absolutist claim by one or both sides on this. And that can be, then you can have a political solution to the problem. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
at the moment, there isn't that, because unfortunately, on one side you have the ethnic supremacists of the Likud party and their allies in the Knesset, who have the backing of the world superpower in order to do their evil, and on the other side you have a Hamas who can't really be negotiated with particularly well, can they? Because they're, you know,
No.
they're themselves violent, genocidal, mad cunts. And unfortunately, the innocent people in between are the innocent Israelis and Palestinians who've been slaughtered during all of this.
Yeah, and of course, at this point, well, I'm pretty sure that some people were saying that even before, but even pro-Israel speakers, pro-Israel uh, academics. I know this person who is a pro-Israel war journalist,
Hmm.
Konstanty Gebert. His nickname is Kostek. He wrote a whole book about genocide called Final Solutions,
Hmm.
Genocide Perpetrators and Their Methods. So it goes through many different genocides. It was written before I think this
Yeah.
conflict began, but um, even like people that are basically pro-Israel have a pro-Israel bent will say that the current Netanyahu government is a bunch of fascists. So
Yeah.
that should give us a clue
True.
that something's not
Yeah. Did
right.
you want to not unshare the article? Are we finished with the article?
Oh, don't you want to read it till the end?
Oh, you can do if you want to, but we hadn't read anything for ages, so I thought you'd sort of finished on the point.
Yeah, because we've been like sort of
Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
go for it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. We finished to strike Russia. Russia's foreign ministry said, wait, here. Major to pre-show to strike Russia. Russia's foreign ministry said that Cameron remarks recognized that Britain was now de facto a part of the conflict and contradicted an earlier assurance that long-range weapons given to Ukraine would not be used against Russia. So this fragment says, ministry said that Cameron remarks recognized that Britain was now de facto a part of the conflict.
I mean, to be honest with you, I would argue that Britain and America have been really for quite a while. Like, I don't know that necessarily means that Russia should declare war or anything, because that won't end well for them. And obviously, I don't want to risk nuclear fucking annihilation. But yeah, we've been arming one side and sanctioning the other side, so it's pretty obvious where the loyalties lie.
Oh, that is true. Although I would say that the moral, at least calculus, is pretty obvious in this war.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I don't think they've made the wrong choice. I'm just saying they've made a choice. You know.
Yeah. Casey was warned that in response to Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory with British weapons, any British military facilities and equipment on the territory of Ukraine and abroad could be targeted, the foreign ministry said. The ministry said it considered Cameron's remarks as a serious escalation. The ambassador was called upon to reflect on the inevitable catastrophic consequences of such hostile steps by London and immediately refuted the belligerent, provocative statements of the head of the Foreign Office in the most decisive and unambiguous way.
Well, this reminds me of the way in which the Soviet Union used to literally talk. Is that they talk constantly about other countries' provocations and whilst doing many of the same things itself. It's like their statements are so out of whack with reality. It's very telling, you know.
I mean, that is basically what I've said, that Russia feels that it can do anything, but any sort of action by any different party is seen as this escalation that cannot be permitted.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we don't see enough of this sort of thing on the Western side. Like, you're going a little bit overboard. You should take a step back, because you could be heading to a situation which cannot be taken back. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because there should have been a more firm response, at least verbally, to the whole Russian missiles in Polish airspace, because Polish airspace is NATO airspace, not just Polish airspace.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. The Article 5 is pretty fucking unambiguous. That an attack upon one is attack upon all, and I don't see why that doesn't apply to verbal threats as well. Ultimately, if the Polish government wishes to have missiles based on its border, undoubtedly it would be provocative towards the Russian government, but ultimately, Russia has nuclear weaponry in the Kaliningrad Oblast, pointed at Western governments.
Right, and Belarus.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, does that mean we get to just bomb the shit out of Kaliningrad? No, that's not how it fucking works. That's your sovereign territory. You can have missiles there. Polish territory is Polish territory. If it wants to have missiles there, that's not your decision to make in Moscow.
Yeah, and it's basically the same thing as with Ukraine to begin with. Even if Ukraine has had the biggest Nazi problem in the universe, okay, every second citizen in Ukraine would be a Nazi sympathizer. That is still a Ukrainian internal problem to solve, not Russia's to invade and denazify.
Also, and this goes for a lot of kind of what are termed as like anti-terrorist actions against, whether it be actual terrorists or otherwise, is that you're not going to defeat terrorism, be it Nazi terrorism or Islamist or whatever, with bombing civilian territories. You're just going to create more people who hate you. So, for instance, with what's happening in Gaza right now, if you wanted to drain support from Hamas, what you shouldn't do is bomb people's houses. Because if you take...
To create more
if you take a person who might be very moderate and doesn't hate Israel, and then you bomb his house and kill his children, is he more or less likely to join an organisation from which he might be able to get revenge against you? And the same is true.
Probably.
And the same is true in Ukraine. Like you say, in your hypothetical, where the Nazis was this huge part of Ukraine, if the Nazis are the ones you're fighting against, and you kill innocent people, those innocent people's friends and families are going to join the side that's going to potentially give them an opportunity to
Defend
revenge.
them.
Yeah. So you're just creating more Nazis, or at least more people who will fight with the Nazis. So how does that actually denazify anything?
Yeah, and of course, if you're gonna denazify a country, you probably should not use neo-Nazi units to do it.
No, no, the Wagner Group and their ilk.
Rusic.
Yeah, exactly. Or the
Like you probably should not
horrific
stake neo-Nazi groups at civilians. No.
yeah, the butchers of queer people in Chechnya and places like that. Don't use those kind of organisations, because that's not denazifying. That's Nazifying. You have sent more Nazis to Ukraine than were already there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and of course the mass graves of civilians.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, I mean, this is it's not even a new thing. We saw with going back to Bucha and various other places in Ukraine.
Yeah.
The Russian government have committed genocidal acts of slaughter on innocent civilians.
And of course the taking children from one group to the other.
Yeah, transference of children. So yeah, like, I mean, that's not even a point I made against the Israeli government, but one that can be made against the Russian government is the forcible transference of children from one group to another, which is one of the five.
And now there's a whole new thing that has emerged in the occupied areas, in the I think Luhansk. In Luhansk, I have it somewhere around here. That women who do not accept Russian passports, who give birth in the hospital, they're threatened with their newborn children being taken away.
Jesus fucking Christ! It's like they're trying to be as evil as possible. What the fuck is that?
And that also ticks one of the Genocide Convention points, making it sort of difficult or impossible, like the reproduction within the group.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because if you say if you're not Russian, then your newborn children are being taken away, then that's just destroying the reproduction within the group.
Yeah, was it meant to prevent births in the group? Now, technically, that doesn't mean prevention of births, but if they're going to be taken from the group, then they're not births within the group.
Yeah, they're not going to be born as members of the group. They're going to be born as Russians. So it does prevent the births within the group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So either way, they're definitely hitting all five markers for genocide.
So just like I'm probably going to have to prepare a whole document on the genocide that Russia is doing against Ukraine, but there a lot is happening. And again, all of it could have been prevented if more decisive, more swift, and in greater quantities of aid would have been given. Like the Abrams tanks, yes?
Yeah.
The US has apparently thousands of them, more than the US could do anything with. Like a lot of them will not be used apparently out of those thousands. And then Ukraine is given 30. So like you can see the frustration here, right?
It's
like,
I mean the front line
be given like 200, 300 or even 500.
Yeah, exactly. Ukraine, you got to bear in mind it's the largest country that's entirely in Europe. The front stretches over, it must be close to 1,000 miles because it curves all around the central plateau of Ukraine. It's huge. To send 30 tanks won't do anything. 30 tanks might be able to control a city, but Ukraine's got a dozen places that are being besieged, you know?
Yeah, and it becomes a huge problem, like with the anti-air, where Ukraine has to choose selectively which cities will be defended. And that becomes a strategy of war for Russia. Russia starts bombing cities, which the anti-air has not always been enough for that, and cities have to function normally for the economy to function normally, for life to function as normally as possible.
Yeah.
So those cities, those biggest cities, because there are many cities that don't get that luxury because there's no anti-air, get defended. But that means that, for example, there's not enough anti-air for critical infrastructure, electricity, or even the front line itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's just
Yeah. Okay. Is there any further point? Because I did want to move on to some other content. So, is there any last points you wanted to make before we kind of wrap up here?
yes. Help me become a big streamer, because I'm a growing streamer. I'm a
Yeah.
small streamer for being the biggest Polish trans streamer, and
Well, yeah, we
um,
can help with that. Everyone, go and check out Lucy Haze, or I suppose for Angloids, it's spelt
Haze.
Lucy Haze. Okay,
Yeah, because apparently
Haze.
I've been told that Haze is better than Haze because Lucy Haze sounds like a cyberpunk character.
It does. It does sound like a cyberpunk character. Yeah, you should do that. You should have like a VTuber thing of a cyberpunk chick or whatever. Yeah.
And that I give people the the future drugs.
Yes, but obviously for terms of service reasons, no.
Of course.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe the future drugs are totally legal. And
Yeah,
kosher.
it's all legal. In the future, all of the drugs are legal. Let's go. Yes.
True.
Yeah, everyone go check out Lucy on the various platforms. Links in the chat there. Thank you for coming on, and we'll chat again at some point, yeah?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Now I have to. Hold on. Now I have to turn this.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, no, Lucy was that was good. When they said they wanted to talk about the debate, I was like, oh god, it's going to be some crazy Zionist fuck, isn't it? But actually, they were lovely. I'm glad about that. Okay, so the story from today. Jesus Christ. Israel Palestine. The Hamas agreed to a ceasefire deal. Israel have scuppered that ceasefire deal and are currently shelling parts of Rafah. What you can see on the screen there is when the initial announcement was made, the people of Palestine were were celebrating. The
Israelis agreed to it. I've been told a few days ago at the end of April, and now to presumably the surprise of Netanyahu and co. Hamas have agreed to that as well. So now the Israelis, will they find a way to wriggle out of this? Will they be able to say, look, this is not the deal we agreed to? Well, if the Americans are saying now this is doable, I think they would be suggesting that this is the deal that was agreed to. And as I said before, the head of the CIA is there in the room at the moment, so he presumably knows what the record of the different proposals is.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is willing to send a delegation to discuss the latest ceasefire proposals over the war in Gaza.
Backtracking like fuck. The Israelis know they've absolutely fucking played their hand massively. They know exactly what the fuck they've been doing. They know exactly they've fucked it completely. That world opinion is world opinion is completely and utterly against them. And so they're now backtracking and be like, oh, we'll send a delegation to Cairo now. We'll do it now. We will, honest. Oh, for fuck's sake. They've tried purposely to scupper this deal at every fucking turn. Anyway. Oh, thank you, Somnio, for becoming a member on the YouTubes. Don't forget, everybody, if you wanted to help me out, either on YouTube, you can become a member on YouTube for as little as 99 pence, or you can you can do a super chat message on twitch.tv. You can what can you do? You can hit the follow button. You can subscribe. You can subscribe with Amazon Prime. You can gift subs to the community. You can do bits messages. You can also do super chats messages for the Streamlabs link below. Biden held up one shipment and Netanyahu fucking folded. Well, exactly. This is the thing. The Israelis know. This is the right. Let's head off the anti-Semitism shit at the fucking start, right? It's not that Israel controls America. It's that America can, when it wants to, control Israel. Israel is its little puppy, its little attack dog base of operations in the Middle East, right? If America wants to, like you say, Biden can hold up one shipment. He can abstain in one vote at the UN, and you get Israel on the back foot, because Israel knows ultimately that it relies completely and totally on American support. If America withdrew its support, Israel would fucking collapse overnight, virtually. Because Israel isn't really, economically speaking, an ongoing concern without the defensive, economic, military, and diplomatic support of the United States of America. So all the United States America has to do is just slightly turn the tap off slightly. Israel will feel the pinch and start vaguely behaving itself, not acting like a fucking rogue state. Honestly, if America wanted peace, it could fucking sort it out. It really could.
Sure, fascinating. Okay, Jeremy, thank you. Our international editor there. Well,
Lord
there were
Freakers
celebrations in
donated
Gaza
$3.
as the
You too can be a nuisance for as little as $2 US despunkify.
Yes, despunkify. Always a good time to bring up despunkify.
head of what the Israeli military said would be a limit.
We've got a 3-day despunkification campaign. It's a military operation.
100,000 refugees have been told to move to what Israel is calling an expanded humanitarian zone near Khan Yunis. But Gazans say the...
Didn't they already drive people away from here? It's like they're playing fucking whack-a-mole with these civilians, driving them from place to place.
But they haven't forgotten how. Even amid uncertainty about Israel's position, hope springs.
Look, if you keep telling them this is a new safe place and then you bomb the new safe place,
Across
it's not
Gaza,
a safe place.
BBC journalists captured the reaction of those convinced, perhaps prematurely, that a ceasefire will happen.
The feeling is indescribable.
Maybe that's why Netanyahu's against the deal, because it made Palestinians happy. And he can't even take that.
It's from the north and we fled here, this young man says. We're so happy there's a ceasefire. Israelis are still absorbing the news. It came late on one of this society's most important days, when across the country sirens bring the nation to a halt in memory of the dead of the Holocaust. A day of reflection in a country traumatized by the Hamas attack last October. Tonight on the streets of Tel Aviv, those who believe healing that trauma can begin with a ceasefire deal and the release of Israel's hostages.
The hostage families. The hostage families have been protesting in Tel Aviv for the last couple of days, and the police have tried to crack down on them for daring them to say, do the deal and bring our fucking family members home, you cunts.
A war in which Israel's army pledged to destroy Hamas.
Mad.
A ceasefire deal that fails to accomplish that risks breaking Israel's wartime coalition government. Israel will send negotiators to talks but won't stop fighting yet.
We examine every proposal very seriously, and we review every possibility on the issue of negotiations and the return of the hostages to their homes as quickly as possible.
No, you had a deal that would have done that, and you turned it down. So you're not interested in bringing them back as soon as possible. Stop fucking lying.
This morning, the people of eastern Rafah woke to leaflets telling them to evacuate. Many have been displaced before, but still they were told to leave. Everyone, no matter how old, how young, or how vulnerable.
Israel, do you want this PR? Really? Do you honestly want this
To Al-Mawasi, Israel says, and other desolate places beyond Rafah. The so-called humanitarian zones were to be expanded, but they've never been safe from sickness, hunger, or war. This is the aftermath of raids on Rafah last night. People hope these may have been some of the last airstrikes if the ceasefire can be made to work. News of the Hamas announcement was still hours away. Nisreen Raja,
fucking
mother,
driving people from one place to another, bombing that new place, then saying, "Oh, you need to go to this other place." Then they bomb that place.
7 months, this has been the daily reality.
Fucking evil, man.
Hani Ashtar, an orphan, grieved by his relative Reem. His family was killed during the war, she says. Even he was killed. So many here are grieving and exhausted. Late tonight, Israel attacked eastern Rafah, where they told people to leave. Celebration had turned to fear, and the hope that tomorrow might bring peace. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Israel or the Israeli
Let's
government?
get the very latest now from Frank Gardner, who's in Jerusalem, and Gary O'Donoghue, who's in New York. Frank, first to you. As we speak, Israel still hasn't signed on to this deal.
And they're not going to. They're not
no,
interested
they haven't,
in it,
but they have at least agreed to do what they didn't do at the weekend, which is to send a delegation of mediators, experts in their view, to try and thrash out a deal. They've said that the terms that Hamas have agreed to are very far from what meets their needs, but they're not ruling it out.
Yeah, their demands are that Israel gets to own all of Palestine, and that wasn't even in the deal, so very far from Israel's want.
And that is controversial because all the aid agencies are saying this could be a catastrophic result for the civilians there. And essentially, I think if you had to sum up the Israeli position, it would be keep talking, but keep fighting.
All right, Frank, thank you. To you, Gary, at the White House. Joe Biden, his team, they're very anxious over Israel's planned attack on Rafah. They don't want it to go ahead, but Israel, it's clear tonight, is still planning to push on.
Stop calling them different things.
Yeah, the administration here believing we're at a really critical stage in this whole process. They are saying that they're looking at the details of the deal that Hamas have said they'll accept, talking to their partners in the region, and also, of course, the CIA director, Bill Burns, is shuttling between Qatar and Cairo, trying to work out what to do next. Now, they're saying that they're going to look at that in great detail. One thing they're being very clear on is the question of Rafah. They say they've seen no credible plan of how to protect humanitarian needs in Rafah, if there were any kind of...
Because Israel doesn't give a fuck about saving human lives.
All along.
Why would they care?
And I think one thing today from the National Security Council spokesman, Clive John Kirby,
hey, hello, Bing Princess.
He said, I don't think there has been a more sensitive stage than right now.
All right, Gary, thank you for that. Gary O'Donoghue there in New York, and Frank
My
Gardner
hair looks like
Jerusalem.
a hat. What? Does it? I hope not. It's a fucking weird
Israel's
hat.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is willing to send a delegation to discuss the latest ceasefire proposals over the war in Gaza. Hamas leaders tonight said they accept the plans brokered by Egypt and Qatar, which is believed could involve the exchange of Palestinian prisoners for 33 Israeli hostages held since the October the 7th attacks. A ceasefire would be welcome respite for many tens of thousands of Palestinians sheltering in southern Gaza, and would be the first pause in the 7-month war since a week-long truce back in November. But Israel has been making plans for a full-scale attack on the southern city of Rafah, and tonight continued to bomb the area. Well, we'll have the very latest from Jerusalem and America, and we'll be reporting on the continuing dire humanitarian situation on the ground in Gaza. But first, let's hear from Jeremy Bowen, who's here with me. Jeremy, Palestinians woke up this morning with a sense of dread, the usual sense of dread. Peace talks seem to have hit the buffer.
Pause what? Why am I pausing? This better be fucking good, big princess. You're holding everyone up. What you got? Pause it. What? We're all waiting. Come on. What we got?
Spinning a bit.
Oh, Your Highness, I'm sure it's not that noticeable. Hold! Hold!
All right, all right.
Relay. Relay. Now, I always appreciate a SpongeBob meme. It's all good.
Then all of a sudden in the last 3-4 hours, everything changed. What happened?
Well, there was that extra feature as well, of course, which was the Israelis telling them to get out of Rafah, the eastern side of it anyway, because of an impending military operation. I think what Hamas has done by accepting this rather unexpectedly is to upend all of Israel's expectations about the way that this would go. There was plenty of evidence.
Hamas called their bluff. And Israel showing Israel up as not wanting peace. They're not interested in a peace deal. Doesn't matter what they put to them, they're never ever going to accept it. They've decided they're just going to take over huge chunks of Gaza, whilst also continuing to take over huge chunks of the West Bank as well.
But what Hamas has now done is put the ball back into his court. In a sense, they've called his bluff. Now, the Israelis have said that Hamas are trying to vary the deal, but there's been the presence in all these talks today of the head of the CIA, William Burns, in Qatar, and he knows exactly what all the different versions of this are. So I think now we see Netanyahu under a lot of pressure. First of all, from his own right-wing allies, who've said, you've got to go in there, destroy Hamas in Rafah, no ceasefires. Got the hostage families saying, do the deal, get our people back. And Joe Biden as well, he might be the most crucial person in all of this. And Joe Biden wants to have a deal because in an election year, he's losing votes because of all this. So there are a lot of forces looming.
So it's good that they're just conceding the point that Joe Biden doesn't give a fuck about the dead people of Palestine. No, it's just he's going to lose some votes in Dearborn or wherever, you know what I mean? How fucking cynical and disgusting, really. Fucking hell.
Palestinians. Earlier in the day, Israel had ordered people sheltering in eastern Rafah, as Jeremy indicated, to evacuate ahead of what the Israeli military said would be a limited operation against Hamas.
Look, if it didn't lose him
this
any
evening,
votes,
that
fuck
offensive
it, kill all
began.
of them. Who cares?
100,000 refugees have been told to move to what Israel is calling an expanded humanitarian zone near Khan Yunis. But Gazans say the area is already overcrowded. Fergal Keane has more details.
They haven't had reason to dance for a long time, but they haven't forgotten how. Even amid uncertainty about Israel's position,
Wordy talks, hit the follow button, mate. Come on now. Come on.
Across Gaza, BBC
yeah, that's right. I
journalists
fucking clapped you.
captured the
I clapped you,
reaction
bitch.
of those convinced, perhaps prematurely,
People
that a
love me.
ceasefire will happen.
I'm awesome.
The feeling is indescribable. We're so happy we're going back to our home in Gaza City.
We're refugees from the north and we fled here, this young man says. We're so happy there's a ceasefire.
This is the same fucking thing again. What?
Israelis.
Oh, this isn't... Oh, for fuck's sake. Hang on a minute. This isn't even the fucking live BBC News, is it? Hang on a minute. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off, all of you cunts. Go on. News. Yes, I've got a TV license.
Everything would burst into flames almost instantly. Anytime there's a spark, it becomes a forest fire. That's where we are now. So we have a lot of experience understanding protests and political action, but since 2014 or so, everything is so combustible, everything is so explosive, everything can spread so fast So it's too soon to tell what's going to happen with these protests. But we're in a new era when weird things happen, and it's very hard to predict.
But I just wonder, because you're a social psychologist rather than a straightforward data scientist, how you can be sure that when you see weird stuff happening, you can ascribe it to a particular phenomenon. In this case, the transformational changes we've seen in the use of smartphones and social media.
What's going on here?
That may be a correlation. They're both happening at the same time. The weirdness plus the smartphone doesn't mean there's a cause and effect relationship there.
Yeah, I cannot be certain about this.
I am
so there are two major topics I hope we're going to talk about. One is the effect of this new media environment, social media, on our political life. That's the one we're talking about now. And that's the one where there are no experiments. It's hard to prove causality.
It's the first time the shipment has been stopped by the White House from going to Israel since October the 7th. And a lot of people are saying this is very significant in foreign policy circles.
And Salma, in terms of the response from Hamas, because the briefing that we had from the White House happened before the airstrikes on Rafah, what then do you think is their next move? Are they likely to say, well, we're not going to go any further with discussions on a ceasefire now that this strike has happened?
I think it's very difficult for them not to do that, especially when you have lots of Middle Eastern countries mediating essentially because they want to see an end to this. I think Hamas's position is, of course, strengthened by the fact that they still have hostages that the Israelis are trying to get out. Even in this particular deal, they agreed to release elderly, women, young people, the sick, and over a period of 6 weeks. So what Israel might be asking for, it goes beyond that. As soon as they lose those hostages, they lose, I mean, I hate speaking these terms, but they lose all their leverage. So for Hamas, this is very difficult because they have this one card to play. They clearly don't care about the devastation that's been inflicted in Palestine at this point. So if they are going to protect themselves with very few other places to go, certainly they can try and get through some of the borders that they're on, particularly with Egypt. But they are in a very tricky position, and I think that what we can't see is for those hostages to come to any harm by the hands of Hamas, or for them to restrict.
Or when they're released to be murdered by the IDF, as we've seen.
So I think that if they do try and counter, I wonder if Hamas is going to try and be even more difficult than they have been in the negotiations thus far.
Alex, just quickly want to talk about the student protests that we've...
Being Princess, I don't know if you saw... I did have a debate with Loner Box. I wouldn't say I cooked that person because I wasn't really trying to. But I think I got some good points across about Israel and Palestine and how it's a genocide and stuff. Yeah. And I have to say, actually, oh God, I don't want to seem conspiratorial. I don't. But I'm going to. Everyone is aware, I think, of Brianna Wu, a person who I did fucking cook in the debate, and her organisation, which is Rebellion Pack, I believe it's called. And it's how do I say it? Co-option of certain streamers online. There have been payments made to streamers online, ostensibly as I think a way of trying to push pro Joe Biden talking points. The one organising these debates with Wick, yes, that, yeah, there have been certain people that have been... I mean, Wick literally admitted it, didn't he, on stream, and I don't think has tried to hide it or be, coy about it. They've taken money from this... Is it Rebellion Pack or whatever the fuck it's called? I forget. And they all seem to be lockstep in line with one another. And so if you go onto their Twitter thing, there's a series of different people who get mentioned. So there's Destiny, gets retweeted by them a lot. Loner Box has been retweeted by them a lot. What's his name? Fuck's sake, Xander Hall. He was Pig Puncher, wasn't he? Xander Hall has been retweeted by them a lot. Brianna Wu gets retweeted by them a lot. there's like a little not so erudite is another one that gets involved, and they've all got the same sort of take, which is the more lefty of them are like, Israel is committing crimes, but it's not genocide. All the way through to Destiny, who's like, yeah, actually, yay, genocide, awesome. There's clearly like a associated with the young, rebellion pack. That's it. Yeah, they're clearly giving money to streamers to say certain things. Now, it could be that the streamers genuinely believe those things. I'm not going to like say that they're all, grifters and liars, but they're definitely taking money from liberal sources to say vaguely defensive things about Israel. That's really obvious. And it's so, and I think they're doing it in order to get Joe Biden re-elected rather than it being like the Israel lobby, blah, blah, blah. But there's clearly something underhand about the whole thing. What's this? You're sending me things now. Oh no, Loner Box. What happened to you, brother? Loner Box was based at one point. What the fuck is this? I think Destiny's generally more honest than Omar. Yeah, their manufacturing consent is basically the point I'm putting out there. And Loner Box is clearly fucking one of them, isn't he? Can I prove that? Absolutely not. I don't have access to his bank records and I wouldn't want them. I'm just saying, I suspect that he is a part of this growing network of fucking griftoids who have taken money and potentially clout, because, they get bigged up by these fucking organisations. Algorithmically, it probably doesn't hurt, I imagine, to fucking say this shit. Don't give me fucking other news. I don't give a shit about other news. Fuck off.
States, but across the industrialized world, do not marry with your conclusions. He says that your notion of an epidemic of mental illness directly tied to kids' use of smartphones and social media is not supported by the science. Now she cites...
let's go through what she says.
Let me just finish, because it's important people hear this. A 2023 analysis, for example, of well-being and usage of Facebook, for example, across 72 countries. Delivered no evidence connecting the spread of social media to mental illness.
That's right. That was a study by Matt Vory and Andrew Shabilsky. And what they did was they took a data set called the Global Burden of Disease, which has estimates of mental illness for 170 countries, and they correlated that with estimates of internet penetration. They found nothing. But whenever you look at these studies, when you dig in, you find there's always a trick. There's something going on. And in that study, the GBD, the Global Burden of Disease, is not actual data. There is no data from 178 countries. It's a set of estimates based on projections from economic factors and other things. And when you look at what the GBD says about what happened in the United States, it says nothing happened. So these estimates are divorced from reality.
How does that tie in with the adolescent brain cognitive development study, for example, in the United States, which found no evidence of drastic changes connected to digital technology use? I mean,
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, still with me, Alex Andreou and Salma Shah. Let's take a look at the Metro, page 2 of the Metro. And this, I believe, is the first time that Rishi Sunak has admitted that his party is likely to lose the general election. Lol. Salma, is it?
I think it is, but I don't think anybody else sort of was surprised by it. And I say that, as a Conservative, Conservative voter and everything else that comes with it. So Rishi Sunak,
this is the perfect example. Oh, hang on. The perfect example that I've mentioned before.
Hello.
How people of colour in Britain have integrated so well to British society that you can be a massive piece of shit. You can be a brown person and a Tory cunt. We are the perfect multiculturalist experiment. Honestly, you'll have brown people doing some fucking settler colonialist fucking imperialism on behalf of Britain. You watch. You mark my words.
If you're a political campaigner or a strategist, you can go one of two ways. You can say it's really close, so it's worth fighting for, which is what he's sort of doing here. Or you can say, you know what, it's a foregone conclusion, so it doesn't matter if you give us your vote anyway. And it's kind of like, which way do you go? And at the moment, it seems like both messages are being deployed in different places. And just the same as, just for fairness sake, you know, just the same as Pat McFadden, the Labour Party's national campaign chief, is saying, you know, there's no plans for us to have any kind of pact with any of the other smaller parties, because it has to be said that it hasn't gone unnoticed that actually, you know, the Greens did incredibly well. The Lib Dems, maybe not to the same extent, but the Greens did do incredibly well in some of the council seats. So is there potentially sort of a progressive split that's happening on the Labour side as well? Some people are critical of that too. But yes, I think that a little bit of scepticism about that comment on the hung parliament.
It is a change of tone, though, because in the papers last night, the Prime Minister was saying if we could pull together, we could still do this.
Which just seemed really odd to me. I mean, it was sort of reaching levels of pathological denial to say, oh, we're just going to stick with the plan. And
isn't that all politics?
People love us, really.
Levels of pathological delusion.
There has to be some sort of grounding to reality. My very favourite comment from the election coverage was Andrew Mitchell to your colleague Beth Rigby, who said about the Midlands, the West Midlands mayoral election, that there's a recount, so we know that Andy Street has either won or nearly won. Either result is terrific for the Conservative Party. It's like, there's no nearly won in politics. He's either won or he's lost.
That's what you call complete optimism.
Spin.
Just want to move over to some American politics. Just got time for this story in the Telegraph, and this is regarding Donald Trump, threatened with jail over contempt, and this is him being fined latterly $1,000 for contempt for the 10th time. He will not obey the gagging orders from the judges.
No, we were having a little debate, weren't we, as to whether he is actively pursuing a course of action that will see him put in...
I'm talking about, right. Sorry, I did have to look for it. It's Progressive Victory. Progressive Victory is a PAC, right? And it's seemingly, at the very least, loosely aligned with the Rebellion PAC people, but whatever. And it's you know, it's Hunter Avallone. It's Xander Hall. I don't know who Pixie Lovey is. I don't know who the fuck that person is. Are they okay? Who are they? Don't know. Fucking Destiny and Not So Erudite. I mean, two right-wing trash bags. They just are. Fuck them. The Pondering. Dylan, naturally. And then various other fucking people. But they're clearly like... They're a part of... They're essentially shills at this point, right? That's what you are. Once you've started fucking taking money from these groups, you're not telling me what you believe. You're telling me what you're being told to fucking say. It's ridiculous. What's that? Do you know who PV's new streamer coordinator is? RGR! Oh my god. Riley Grace Roshong is ahead of this. No wonder they're giving fucking money to Destiny. IRI. Fucking IRI. Just an out-and-out Zionist shill. Just an out-and-out Zionist piece of garbage. But he likes the libs. Fucking Christ almighty. This is the left. This is the fucking left. Fucking Des Tiny. Fucking Des Tiny. A guy whose joked about Palestinian genocide. Has talked about fucking mowing down. Was it fucking far right Hicks or whatever mowing down dipshit protesters or whatever? Right? Has defended aggressively Carl Rittenhouse as being innocent. This is the progressive victory. Really. If this is progressive, we might as well start building the camps ourselves and just jump in there. Jump in the fucking ovens. If this is the left that's fucking defending us. Oh. Fucking Christ almighty. Oh, Vosh, what are you doing, brother? Fucking hell. Feminist destroys Michael Knowles. Okay. That's good, I guess. The Omni-Liberal. Should we check out some of the great stuff the Omni-Liberal's been putting out there, shall we? As part of progressive victory. Oh, pro-genocide stuff. Some more pro-genocide stuff. Oh, he did fact-check fucking Nick Funes, so that's something. Pro-capitalism stuff. I don't know. Dan Simpson's a knob or whatever. Irrational Chad. Lol. Well, not lol that they got taken down. I mean, like, just lol in general. Whatever. Yeah, so that's pro-Israel. Pro-Israel. Yeah, this is progressive. So fucking progressive. You know who also fact-checked Nick Fuentes? Delightfully? We had a return of George Santos as Kitara, his drag queen alter ego that he denied existed. And here we go. It has been approximately 12 hours since I asked Nick Fuentes if he was gay, and he ran away from me without answering. Nick girl, can I get... That's Nicky girl. Can I get an answer? Inquiring minds are dying to hear the words out of your mouth. I understand if it's currently occupied bringing the swelling of a dick down. We can wait. Lol. America, you passed up on a bad bitch. You could have had this kind of cunt being served in Congress for years and amusing levels of corruption from them. But no, you decided to kick them out because they just broke loads of laws. It's political correctness gone mad. Fuck yes. Yeah, Santos. If Santos just becomes a deranged drag queen, I'm all for it. I'm very much in favour of it. Did you know he was paid to endorse NAMBLA? What the fuck? Is that true? That can't be true. Please tell me that's not true.
Hello and welcome to Newsday. I'm Steve Lai, reporting live from Singapore.
Hello, Steve.
These are the headlines. Celebrations in Gaza as Hamas says it has accepted the terms of a proposed ceasefire, but Israel says it does not meet its key demands. The personal information of serving British military personnel has been accessed in a significant data breach.
For fuck's sake.
French President Macron welcomes new assurance.
Oh, Britain's so shit. Britain's the shittest country. They've fucking hacked. They fucking hacked the military. We can't even defend the fucking database, let alone the country. Oh, what's this?
If you've seen Sacha Baron Cohen's Who is America, then you know politicians can be duped into saying the strangest things. Blink 182 pheromones. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is
a good child with a gun. Happy shooting, kids.
I wanted to see how far I could push this, so I may or may not have contacted George Santos on Cameo. I had a question. What won't a politician do or say for money? The answer to that question, in George Santos's case, is nothing, apparently. In case you don't know, NAMBLA, or the North American Man-Boy Love Association, is an organization that seeks to put an end to age of consent laws, so men in their 40s can have a relationship with boys in their preteens and... yeah. Anyways, this is a pretty well-known organization. A simple internet search would have told George that something was amiss. I mean, South Park has done an episode about NAMBLA.
And I'd like to take a minute to hear some testimonials from members.
This is boring. Yeah. Hey, when are we gonna get to some action, huh?
Ooh.
Here we go.
Hi, NAMBLA. I just wanted to stop by to offer you my full support and that I am here for you if you need anything.
No.
I want to congratulate you on your success and on your anniversary this past
What are you
December.
doing?
I just wanted you to know you're doing a great job and you're doing great things and the world is a better place because of you. We all love you.
What?
And I love you, NAMBLA. Mwah. All the best. Bye.
I mean...
What the fuck did I just see? What did I just see? What was that? What the fuck was that? Ah! Oh, my fucking head hurts. That's fucking wild. Hey, NAMBLA. Oh, my fucking head is going to explode. Oh. Fucking Christ almighty.
I mean, these are the idiots in charge. These are the guys passing our laws. If he can be duped by this, then imagine what other politicians are duped by.
You want a link to that? Yeah, no problem. But yeah, as pointed out in chat, Nigel Farage, former British member of the European Parliament and serious politician man, gave a shout out to a terrorist organisation. Hang on, no, Nigel Farage, IRA.
Forecourts, vegetables rotting in the ground, shipping containers being turned away from the ports. What's going on in Brexit Britain?
It's in the same number of goods. And that is why there are shortages in Los Angeles, there are shortages. In fact, Poland is shorter.
No, that's not. No. There's him getting called out for the fucking IRA thing. Where is it now?
Since leaving politics, Nigel Farage, leader. This was Farage being interviewed on Irish TV earlier this week.
Why don't you ask yourselves in Dublin a question? Why did you fight the British? Why did Irish nationalists fight the British for 500 years? 500 often very bloody, difficult years until the 1920s. What was the point of it if you're now governed by European commissioners?
I think people will be entertained, Nigel, to hear you talking about this.
And that may be too inconvenient for all of you in Dublin. Oh, I'm sure. Yes, of course.
I know that you apologised for the birthday greeting which you delivered in the last couple of days, but I want people to see just how much you know about the history and culture on this island.
Now, it's a bit early in the day, so all I've got actually is coffee, but I hope you enjoy a few pints with the lads tonight. Up the Ra!
Just to clarify for anyone who might not get that reference, the Ra refers to the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, a prescribed terrorist organisation in the United Kingdom. who've been at war with the British government for about 60 fucking years. There's also a fantastic one of him wishing happy birthday to Jerry Adams, who was formerly a member. Fucking crikey. No, not the Inflation Reduction Act. That's the baseline. the one terrorist organisation according to the British government.
Up the Ra, Nigel. I mean, I know that you said sorry. I know you get 87 quid. It's entirely within your rights to do that. But come on, don't try and lecture the Irish people about the culture and history and precarious nature of peace on this island. You haven't got a clue.
If you want to be, do you want to be an independent democratic nation or governed by foreign bureaucrats? That's the question that Ireland will ask itself. Those of you in the national media and national policies in Dublin will fight that as hard as you can because you've all benefited financially. Do the Irish people wish to be independent or not? And that is a debate.
Well, for 87 quid, you don't appear to be independent, you fucking tool. Jesus Christ.
Israel hasn't agreed to the deal. The proposal has had some effect.
They have at least agreed to do what they didn't do at the weekend, which is to send a delegation of mediators, experts in their view, to try and thrash out a deal. They've said that the terms that Hamas have agreed to are very far from what meets their needs, but they're not ruling it out. So I think there is a degree of optimism here. But at the same time, as I mentioned, they are continuing their push, their military push, against the wishes of the Americans in Rafah. And that is
the IRA set off several bombs in British cities. Yeah, like, it's probably best you don't, like, big them up if you're a British politician. You know.
Keep fighting.
Earlier, the US State Department spokesman Matthew Miller gave its response to the Hamas announcement.
Hamas.
So I can confirm that Hamas has issued a response. We are reviewing that response now and discussing it with our partners in the region. As you know, Director Burns is in the region working on this in real time. We will be discussing this response with our partners over the coming hours. We continue to believe that a hostage deal is in the best interests of the Israeli people. It's in the best interest of the Palestinian people. It would bring an immediate ceasefire. It would allow increased movement of humanitarian assistance. And so we're going to...
Hello, Boy Meets Minnie. Everyone go and follow Boy Meets Minnie.
I'm joined now by our North America correspondent, David Willis. David, what more can you tell us about the reaction out of Washington?
It's been a cautious reaction, Steve, as perhaps you might expect. The White House National Security spokesman John Kirby telling reporters that the United States was, as he put it, evaluating the deal from Hamas, or word from Hamas, and he went on to say that it was a highly sensitive time and he didn't want to say anything that might upend the ongoing negotiations. Later, we heard, as you just heard, from Matthew Miller, the US State Department spokesman, who said that some sort of deal was achievable. All this after President Biden had spoken by phone to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That before word came down that Hamas had accepted a ceasefire deal, and President Biden, according to the White House readout, reinforced his opposition to any sort of military operation in Rafah. Nonetheless, such an operation...
What news source would you prefer, Miss Haya? What did you tell me which news source you'd prefer?
The United States leverage is, as far as the Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned, a hardline government that has...
Okay, couple of points. Firstly, Fred Battersby, lovely name. Secondly, Benjamin Netanyahu Willie Cheese Picks is one of the best first time chats I've ever received. Yeah, I'm just putting that out there. All these news anchors and news people look like caricatures of British people. Yeah, that's just the BBC. That all of them are like that, yeah.
Election year, less than 6 months to go before Americans...
Although nothing beats... What's the British guy on... Is it CNN, I think? The Richard something or other, who's like... He's like a cartoon version of an Englishman.
To curb Israel's invasion in Gaza and for the the growing death toll there. Progressives, of course, have called on him to do more, but he has, as I mentioned, really been very limited in the influence that he's been able to exert on Benjamin Netanyahu. We've seen...
No one talks like... No one is like Richard Quest. No one.
So back here in Uzbekistan, there is this phenomenal digital push, if you will. The country wants to be an information tech hub, Central Asia, bearing in mind all the other countries, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, all of them. Well, can Uzbekistan steal a march, in a sense?
Can it steal a march, in a sense? Can you fuck off?
Very much for that, David. David Willis, our North America correspondent. Now we'll be bringing you a report from our special correspondent, Fergal Keane, later in the programme, which has more on the reaction to Hamas agreeing to a proposed ceasefire and the evacuation beginning in Rafah. But now let's get you some breaking news. And there has been a significant data breach involving the UK Ministry of Defence. Now with more on this, our correspondent Alex Forsyth joins us. Alex, tell us what we know.
Britain is absolutely
what we know so far is that a third party has accessed in an unauthorised fashion a payroll system used by the Ministry of Defence. Now, this system is run by an external contractor, so this is not the main Ministry of Defence computer, and no operational detail has been obtained, but what has been accessed is personal details of serving members of the armed forces, mostly names and bank account details, but also in a very small, I'm told, number of cases, some addresses as well. These are people who are currently serving in the...
You're just going to have army personnel just having their bank accounts absolutely fucking ransacked.
Or it's not been confirmed yet who's behind this or what that data is being used for, but it's clearly a very significant breach. The Ministry of Defence, I'm told, took immediate action, so that system has been taken offline, and there are clearly investigations going on to ascertain the scale of the...
Yeah, you're just going to have Amazon charges to the fucking Ministry of Defence. The Ministry of Defence just going to be like, I don't remember buying 50... I don't know, fucking battery packs from Amazon. When did this happen? What? Did we buy? Who bought trainers? When did this happen?
As I say, a number of people involved were former members of the armed forces. We also understand the UK Defence Secretary Grant Shapps is due to update on MPs in the House of Commons on this tomorrow and set out a plan, an action plan, a response plan.
Oh, I don't care. I don't care. Shut the fuck up. Right. I think I'm going to call it a day there. Relatively short stream, but we did what we wanted to do, I think. Also, I want to get some food. I'm fucking hungry. I'm going to go to sleep. Oh, fucking hell. Is it 11? How the fuck is it 11 o'clock already? The day only just started, mother flippers. Yeah, well, okay. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. I do have something planned, but I forgot what it was. So it'll be something. I don't fucking know what. I'm a professional streamer, didn't you know? Who should we go? Should we go over to Wick and the Progressive Victory? Fuck off. Hildebeest. I haven't been over to Hildebeest in ages. We'll go over there. Fuck yeah. Let's go. Christie. Question mark. No thanks. What? Oh, that fucking Santos clip. I'm going to have to play that Santos clip for Christie on Wednesday when I'm with her. Yeah. Fucking amazing. Hello, Namblar. Fucking... He is on a different planet. Jesus. Oh, fuck, who did I say we were going over to? Hildebeest. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm on with... Well, I am technically on with Christy. We're going to be on with Rob again. So probably talking about some American shit, I imagine. That's what we generally do there. And then maybe look at some more Israel-Palestine stuff, because there will be hideous, awful updates to give you there. Stay tuned for that. Go and say hello to Hildebeest, who's a good person. Thank you all for listening and watching. Thank you for all of your support. Stay beautiful. No pass around.